and this is another update on the Toyota pickup V8 swap project. Right now, finally, I got a package back from Toyota V8. I think that's the website, ToyotaV8.com. I purchased their kit, and I was really excited when I first got it and everything, stuff like that. And it was a couple months before I even tried to attach it to the transmission from the truck. That's what it's for. It's to adapt the 1UZ V8 engine to the Toyota's original transmission. But unfortunately, when I attempted to attach the plate to the transmission, the plate didn't fit or sat flush against the transmission itself, meaning that there wasn't any seal between the input shaft bearing and the counter shaft bearing, so that way oil and transmission fluid does not leak out of the transmission when it's running. It's the same thing on that one. So skeptical, I tried the plate on both transmissions and got the same results. I even measured the original OEM output shaft seal cover, and the specs were exactly the same. I even tried to verify that this truck did come with a W55 transmission. So I contacted ToyotaV8.com, and he said, well, maybe you have an oddball one. But I said, no, not unlikely, especially when two transmissions that are from two different year pickups are exactly identical. So to fix the problem, they recommended that I ship the plate back. He got the plate, so I shipped it back, got the plate. So he tells me, he said it's in spec. So my counter argument was, so why does the OEM cover fit this bearing, both of them, but not your plate? It has something has to be up. Something has to be wrong. I'm not saying that, and I'm trying not to downplay his company or anything like that. It's just something that's not right, It's you advertise that you fit the W55 or W series transmissions, except for later model W series that come on the Toyota Supras and the IS300s and the SCs. So he recommended that I shipped him the cover that came with the transmission. So I did. This was about 2 weeks. 2 weeks, 3 weeks I had to wait. The truck was put on hold. Didn't even bother pulling the engine out to do more modifications to make it sit more flush. Got the plate back, test fitted. Now it sits perfectly flush. So that way I can at least put silicone around, like it's supposed to put create a seal so that way fluid doesn't come leaking out. So now I got everything back. I'm excited. I'm gonna put everything together. I'm gonna get the original 1UZ's. Where is it? Bell housing. Is it under there? That's the catcher. Well, I'm gonna get the 1UZ's original bell housing, bolt it up to the transmission, put the T56 clutch suppressor or throwout bearing. This is actually easy. It's better than get rid of the ridiculous fork setup. So that way there's less parts to deal with, less weight, also less stuff. Pretty much just less stuff to deal with and less prone for things to break. That fork has been used hundreds, thousands, millions of times on this truck, especially with something with over 300,000 miles on it. So finally, I get to put the whole drivetrain assembly all together, and hopefully we can start the wiring process, get it to crank over, get it to sit well, hear this thing finally start, and then on to plumbing. Alright, second half. So I'm gonna show you what the kit comes
coming straight from ToyotaVA.com. Right here you get the adapter plate. This adapter plate is specifically for the W Series transmission. It's advertised to fit all W Series transmissions except for later W Series in, say, for example, an IS 300 and SC 300 and a Toyota Supra in a 5-speed manual. They did not fit those, as he warned me about that when I made contact with him, because he had to make a few machine changes on this plate for it to fit mine. But he did everything done. Tested it, the seal. It seals great. It gets the transmission. Already test fitted all the bolts lined up, along with the bell housing for the 1UZ, which is originally from the automatic transmission from the SC400. It's supposed to bolt that up so that way we can bolt it up directly to this transmission, so you don't have to deal with any ruggedness from the R series. He also sells an R series package as well. Kind of take the same thing. The only difference is the plate. What else is included is also all the bolts you need, and yes, you will use every single one of them. These also come with the bolts for the plate. Bolts to go to the belt housing to belt up to the adapter plate. Also comes with the fittings as well, so that way they hook up directly into the T56 rod bearing. Now, I like this design. I'm glad he went with this route, because having to cut a hole into the bell housing like so to make it work with the original clutch fork would be a pain in the ass. And I'm glad he went with this one, because you only have to do is drill 2 small holes inside the bell housing, so that way the lines run to and from. Including with the kit that works with is 2 stainless steel lines. One's for return, one's 2. Well, technically one not a return. One is to the throw-up bearing, and one is pretty much a bleeder hose. And the bleeder hose helps when you're bleeding the clutch out in the master cylinder. And you can pretty much make it a one-man job. You're not constantly having to spill or lose brake fluid or clutch fluid. So that way you have this line that's going to be rerouted to the safe zone, to the master cylinder on the firewall, so that way you're not wasting any material. And you can pretty much do it as a one-man army, where you just have the line rerouted to a part where you can actually see it come out as full fluid, or control the shut and close valve on it, so that way you don't have to need another person to help you bleed the system. So that's a nice perk. I like that. That's actually really good idea. It's very convenient. This kit makes it seem that you can accomplish it as a one-man army or mechanic to make this swap happen. So we're gonna go ahead and take off the original belt housing. Also recommend, whenever you do this, clean it thoroughly before you take off the cover, so that way you don't get any contaminants inside the bearing housing, because fluid does flow even under pressure, heat and everything does flow in between these seals and these bearings. And the last thing you want is any contaminants or anything like that getting jammed between bearings, because that means, well, you're gonna have a bad day shifting. One more thing, there's a seal right here. It's kind of like a cam seal input. Same thing as a seal. Excuse the noise. My neighbor's playing music extremely loud. This is going this seal is supposed to go on the inside of this, in this little section right here. And that's the input shaft seal that goes to pretty much where the clutch goes. This is the seal that keeps oil from coming out as well.
Alright, once you get both surfaces cleaned on the transmission end and the adapter plate, make sure both surfaces are absolutely clean. And I really strongly suggest you use Toyota Seal Hack. This stuff is the best seal you can get. Formal Toyota, coming from a formal Toyota tech, myself, use this stuff. It's better than any off-the-shelf aftermarket to use on all Toyota parts. Just do a better job than I did spreading this stuff on, because my nozzle was cracked on the side, so it didn't come out as good. But not much oil flows through this part of the transmission. So we're gonna go ahead and mate everything. Make sure you have the bolts and stuff ready to go once you made it, so that way it seals. Allow the stuff, just kind of hand tighten all the bolts. Allow this stuff about 15 to 20 minutes to dry using the Toyota pack, and you should be good to go. You'll do the final torque.
Also with the T56 throttle bearing from the kit, you take this off, and you replace the fittings with this. Inside there's a little dwell pin that you punch out, pull this sucker out, put this guy in there, the dwell pin back in. It should create a good seal. Now that we have this fitting that's been replaced, replace this guy, which was original for the T56, you want to go ahead and put this fitting. This guy, which was heat shrink to some cardboard piece and goes in like this. Be sure to use that washer that came with this, or else you're gonna have issues. You're gonna have clutch fluid, brake fluid spraying all over the place inside here. This thing will leak and spew like a fountain.
Here's the final product. Bell housing all attached, all bolts in, throat bearing is in, fountain lines are fitted, holes are drilled. Normally the bolts bolt up to the plate itself. They also come with these lock nuts. They have the locker waves in behind of the nut, so really not necessary for a lock washer or even Loctite. You just grip onto the metal plate itself. Now, gotta pull this guy out. Do some auto modifications to the motor mounts, because right now, what I'm dealing with is oil pan clearance. As you can see, one side is making contact, the other one's up in the air. This engine's not sitting straight. So now, I gotta pull the motor out. Go ahead and do the final attachments for the transmission and see if I can get this thing in and leveled. So I went ahead and pulled out the engine, and as soon as I realized, as I pulled it out, none of the kits that I purchased come with bolts for the flywheel to attach the clutch. No bolts. So I can't even attach this thing tonight because everything's closed on a Sunday. And I have no bolts. Mother.